Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Chris Mason. Chris, you're the CEO of Namos. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to grow a business, the life of an entrepreneur. Before we get into that, though, where can people get hold of you?
Yeah, morning, Tim. Firstly, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
My best contact details for everyone are Chris Mason Namos, and that will be on Twitter or LinkedIn. So
Right.
you should be able to find me.
Okay, so Chris, give us a little bit of a background, because what's your journey? How have you got here?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm actually a hands-on functional Oracle configurator. So I used to do the implementation of the software. Now that I'm the CEO of the company. So my background, I worked for an SI for 5 years. Just before they were acquired into a larger organization, I decided to spin off and set up Namos Solutions on my own. My first 5 years were just me. So out there grafting hard, working on multiple assignments at any one time. We then won a large implementation project, took on a couple of contractors. I guess like with any entrepreneur or business owner, there's risks that come with that. And I decided at that time to take an office in Hayes Galleria. About 5 years ago, we had a 3-man office. I took on a marketing assistant as an apprentice to be able to bring someone in and train them up and guide them on the journey. And then, the next couple of years were very much, we grew the team from 1 to 13. And at that time, it was scary, exciting. But yeah, it came with all the challenges of growing business from 1 to 13. And then in the last couple of years, I'm sure we'll come on to that. But in the last couple of years, our headcount has doubled year on year. And particularly in the last year, it's been a very exciting time.
Well, we'll come to that in a moment, because I mean, the growth that you've had during the pandemic seems to be completely opposite to the way that a lot of businesses have been happening. But so you started off. You're basically a functional consultant for Oracle product, for the Oracle accounting product, if I'm correct. And I'm trying to use a language which where people will understand using accounting software rather than ERP.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So my background was on the accounting side, and that's then when I started Namos, just doing financials, just doing the accounting software implementations. And certainly then in our earlier stages, that was all we did. But then as we grew the business further, we started adding HR and payroll and other functionality, because I brought individuals in that could help me grow the business in that way.
And so one of the things that kind of enabled you to start on the Namos journey was the move to cloud, and the way that software as a service, or SaaS, has given you an opportunity to sell a particular set of products. So moving away from, in effect, which was the on-premise working within Oracle, which could be 18-month sales cycles, very long implementations, to cloud, where the sales cycles are shorter, but also what you've got are faster, or should be faster implementations. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, certainly on-premise to start. And as you say, I think that software as a service implementation, what the customers are looking for in terms of best practice and the enablers there, actually was an accelerator for us. It enabled us to grow the business, and enabled me to take on that next step. We certainly weren't the first to do it. Lots of people out there claiming they're the first to do everything. But what we did was we looked around the market. What I did was I spent time looking at what others were doing. Also, I felt at the earlier stages, some of the Oracle platform probably wasn't quite there, and everyone talks about being the first and the innovators. And so we were doing on-premise projects, and we still do the odd occasional on-premise project, but certainly our growth plan and our business plan, when I brought Richard Eltham into the business 5 years ago to support me, was let's look at starting a graduate scheme. Let's look at how we can scale up without having any equity, any external investment, to be able to say we can bring graduates on, we can train them up in a way that gives them a good career path. There's certainly a skills gap in the UK marketplace. So we found that exciting, and we were enabled then to train staff in a quicker way to be able to win projects. And
that's something that I know that you because there's a lot of people that certainly in the Oracle market that whinge at the fact that there isn't any resource. but you've actually gone out and you've done some work around graduate program and in terms of veterans, as well as bringing people in from the armed forces back into business.
Yeah, it's a tough marketplace. I mean, we talk about it on the Oracle Partner Advisory Board with all other partners, and Oracle speak about it themselves. And I just don't think it's within the Oracle space, but it's across some of the technology vendors in the UK per se, is that there's lots of customers now wanting to move from on-premise to cloud. And as you've said, I think the VETS program we launched and I signed the Armed Forces Covenant is something I'm very passionate about. My brother served in Iraq and Afghan, so hearing about some of the armed forces that are coming to end of service or even halfway through service and looking for a new career, it's a great opportunity for them, and it's a no-brainer for me. It's an opportunity to give hardworking people that opportunity. And we're actually just about to launch another graduate scheme with a customer, and there'll be more coming out about that. But we're going to do a project with a customer on a big multi-pillar where they're going to bring some graduates in, we're going to bring some in and do it on a co-program to be able to deliver a project to them at a cost-efficient price point.
So fast forward to today in terms of your business. You've now got, when we spoke on the 1st of July, you had 76 customers. I don't know if that's changed at all. But
yeah, it's over 80. So I said something.
Things move fast.
I said something on Friday and Rich said, no, it's 81 or 82. Yeah, we got preferred supplier on 2 more pieces of work again last week. And so It's exciting time. As I was saying earlier on, you have a different challenge going from 1 to 13 people as you do going from 50 to 150, and certainly the same on the customer base, but it's a busy time out there.
Yeah. And when we spoke, you'd gone from, was it 48 to 128 full-time equivalents people.
Yeah.
Now, and I posted something, I put details of this, and Richard basically said it's now more than 128 people.
It is. So I said last week, we're now 135, and he said, no, we're at. So I was speaking to Larissa, actually, who's our HR manager, and she's onboarded 4 new full-time employees today into the organisation. Right. I know we've got accepted contracts for 27 new staff. So we're up to about 135 full-time employees as it stands. We'll be through 150 in the next 2 to 3 months. And as an organisation, what Namos are also looking to do is to start to use a bit of an offshore model. Now, it's something in the early days I always said for Namos, big enough to deliver, small enough to care. And I like whites of the eyes. I like being able to be on site and working with individuals.
Yep.
But certainly one thing the pandemic's shown us is you can still do software implementations over Zoom and Teams and live streams, etc. So what we're not looking to do is a fully offshore model where maybe 80%'s done offshore and 20% in the UK, but actually flip that and have 80% done in the UK, but 20% of the build work. And we're actually going through an RFP process at the moment with some partners to look at how we can bring on 30 people in September, as well as those other 20 that I said, additionally to really start to drive us towards a headcount of, we believe, 250 to 300 by the end of next year. But that's not just focused on UK projects. We launched an EU entity as well, and we've actually launched a US entity last year, and we've got billable work there as well. So we're becoming a global SI.
So I mean, during the pandemic, I was going to say you launched in the US, and we've still got the pandemic going on, and here you are expanding into Europe as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It was a struggle. Let's be really honest, and I try to be honest about everything I say. The US business took a lot longer, and I think US business will always take time to launch, particularly when you can't be there, and if it's about you. And we've seen other organizations where the owners move to the US to drive the business or be that face on the ground there. We're looking to do it in a sustainable way. As I said before, we don't have that private equity, so we're never going to suddenly become 1,000 people overnight. That's not what we're about. I think it's got to be about delivering value as well. But we won our first piece of work out in the US last month in Seattle. Joe Haverfield, who's my SVP out there, is working on a lot of US opportunities. We are doing an in-person event, if it still goes ahead as planned, at Ascend in Florida in about 4 weeks' time. And at the moment, it's all still going ahead. So Joe and some of the team will be there. We've got a sales director coming in the US as well to be on the stand. So it's an exciting time. It does start to mean that you work, I think we talked about this before, but almost 24/7, and it's making sure that you get the downtime. And I feel like I've got a team around me now where Namos, when we started, Namos is an anagram of my surname of Mason, and everyone in the earlier days were like, Namos, well, that's Chris Mason. We've won projects over the last 2 years now where I'll go on maybe a steering committee or a project board and someone say, so who are you? So I'm the CEO, and it's fantastic because it shows that the team are doing exactly what we need to do.
So we've kind of come full circle in terms of the history of your your business. What would you put down to your success?
Oh, what I put? I guess someone asked me this last week. We're having a chat actually, and I said the harder you work, the luckier you get, and you seem to get more luck, etc. But I think it is hard work. It really is. Back in the early days, and even still now, anyone that thinks that I log in at lunchtime and log off early, it's just not the case. And myself and the rest of the board are still always doing the long hours to keep doing it. I think it's the team. We were Sunday Times top 100 company to work for last year, and it's tough to keep everybody happy as you get bigger. You can't please everybody, but certainly even with COVID and the return to work program now, we did a survey 3 months ago to the organization to listen and hear what their feelings were and their nervousness. And there's really completely two ends of the spectrum. Some want to be desperately back on site and some desperately don't. And so we're trying to, wherever possible, cater to that and make sure that those individuals are listened to and not forcing the back. And I see some of the fantastic things some of the big four are doing, or some of the large organizations where they say, we'll be 100% work from home, 100%. I can't do that. I can't put policies out there. I'd love to, and maybe in the future, but we're just not able to do that and still meet some of our customer commitments. But being flexible, I think, is really key, and listening to what people are asking.
We've had a comment from Karina Smith, and she says, "I love the fact that although there is huge growth, here you are still paying it forward with a graduate scheme and involving ex-armed forces." And I agree. It's commendable, Chris. So
thank you. Thanks, Karina. Honestly, I feel privileged to have the opportunity to do it. Again, I sent somebody else. I feel blessed with the team I've got under me, and the opportunity to be able to do something like that and make a change. I mean, I do the same with some of the running, and I'm not a big runner, although I have done the marathon a couple of times now, and I'm doing it for Angelman UK this year for the London Marathon. And it was a struggle getting out and doing 15K early on Saturday. It really was, particularly in the heat. But I think if you've got the opportunity to do that and raise funds and do something for good, then why not? It's nice.
So what would you say that you've learned over the last few years in terms of building the business through the pandemic, etc.?
What have I learned? I mean, it gets obviously there's a higher reward the bigger you get, but certainly there's bigger risk as well. We've turned down a couple of opportunities that have come in through the door to us recently, both from Oracle and customers as well, and we're just not able to scale and win all. I think we're very lucky in the Oracle ecosystem that there are a good number of partners out there able to service it. And whilst it's certainly competitive, there's a lot of, there's certainly a good amount of collaboration across partners and support for each other as well. But one of the big things that I think really changed Namos for me was bringing in Jim Muir as my non-executive director. So whilst I went on the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program, and I was a functional consultant who had never run a business before, and now sit here today as a double-digit million turnover organization with plans to continue to grow across multiple countries, having the right people around you. And I think you can never underestimate having a non-exec who's been there and done it.
Yes.
We didn't have a big extensive agreement, but 1 or 2 days a month to enable him to help support our business plan, our board packs, engagement with the bank. If I knew what I knew now back then, I would have spent a lot more time with our customer relationship manager and others saying, well, you've given me £1,000 overdraft and I'm a million turnover business. Come on, let's be sensible. And this is 3 or 4 years ago now. So just starting to have those relationships, sharing the information, being transparent, being honest with your customers. We've won, or certainly 2 years ago when we started on the upward trend, just telling customers, these are our set of accounts. This is where we are at. But over the next year, this is what we plan to do. And our success rate and our history so far shows us we're able to do that. Means that we can be credible, and customers have signed up, and some maybe felt like it was taking a chance possibly on Namos was some of the things that we heard in the past. I don't believe that's the case now, but just being really honest with them is key.
And I think it's so true about having a non-exec and a mentor. I mean, we have a chairperson. I mean, he's our accountant, but his background is city finance, running businesses and supporting businesses, and it's great to have that independent third party that you can turn to and say, what would you do? Is this the right, what's your advice? I think it's so important.
Yeah, as you say, I think with Jim, he'd been there and done it, and now I've brought in Steve Parkinson, who's my new non-exec and supporting us, and they both had, I've asked them to do different things. Steve's now supporting us with outsourcing, with growth, with future plans. But certainly it's that sounding board. And as you say, just something where it's an external pair of eyes just to look at something internal, but not in the weeds, not in the transactional, but looking at the strategic piece to be able to say, well, why didn't you do that? And sometimes it was obvious. There'd be other times, though, when I go to Jim and say, I want to do this, this, and this. What do you think? And so you've already given me the answer. But just having that to give you that support is fantastic.
So what have been the challenges?
Challenges, cash. I mean, always, again, any owner that says, it's not, cash is king. Cash is absolutely king. So again, the SaaS models enabled us to put some upfront billing on things to be able to keep growing at the rate that we need to. Our reserves now are certainly increased month on month, but as I said before, that payroll number keeps getting bigger, and so it needs to keep increasing. Not being greedy with that, so making sure that as the directors, whilst you're reaping the success, certainly I got my little Ferrari behind, which my son's got me for my birthday, but I don't have a Ferrari, not yet. Certainly that, the plan as well, the business plan, and I think some of the things that I learned on the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. So continuous learning, always reading the books. I bought your social selling book, I think about 5 years ago, and did a tweet when I was about one person. I listened to Rob Moore and some of the life leverages and some of the podcasts he's doing. I love the high performance podcast at the moment, and listening to each of those on there. And I think Adam Peaty's on it, having won the gold today. I know he's on there on Wednesday. Just listening to them and listening to what they do. And I think it is just that case of hard work, determination, never give up. You've just got to keep going. And when it feels like you're down, if you stick at it and you've got a plan and you've got the right people around you, then the success does come.
So if you were going to do it again, what would you do differently?
Oh, what would I do differently? I think we touched on some of it. I mean, I think some of it is having closer engagement with the bank. I think certainly in the early days, again, we've been not fortunate. We've not had any issues there, but making sure that we had some of the stuff that was accessible to us. Someone asked me the other day, would you start adding other software vendors? So we are Oracle only. It's all we do is we just work with the Oracle product. And actually my answer is no. And they said, well, it'll spread your risk. And I said, but I think it's a clear value proposition to our customers. That's all we do. We are Oracle only. It's what we know, and therefore, I think it's what it's what we're good at. So, but yeah, not diversifying the services. So I think we've increased them at the right time and added more and more. Like I was saying, HR, payroll. We're now moving a bit into the CX side on a project we've just started, and we're looking to co-partner on some of that as well. But yeah, the non-exec maybe a little bit earlier than we did. I mean, a lot of it, I think, I'm happy with where we've got to. We could be bigger, we could be smaller, we could have done some things differently, but I kind of think, we are where we are, and I love the hashtag Team Namos and what we've been doing. So
and if there was any advice that you would offer to people that would either starting their own business or thinking of starting their own business, what would it be?
Don't underestimate it. Don't just think, often people think, like with the EU entity we've just incorporated, somebody said to me, oh, well, this was easy. You just launched the EU entity. And I said, no, we didn't just launch the EU entity. This took hours and hours of work and a solid team behind me. And the support of your family. And again, I know I've touched on this in the past, but having that support from people at home enables you really to drive forward what you want to do and what the ambition of it there. Yeah, and then probably the non-exec. And again, I've said that a couple of times, but it doesn't need to be someone that's really expensive. It doesn't need to be someone for your own growth path. And it's something that I'm looking to do with a couple of businesses now. Just to give them a bit of support and guidance, having said, I was there when it was one person. And when you go 1 to 2, you need to think about this. 5 to 10 is this insurance. I had to learn a lot of that, and it worked. But having someone that can guide you on some of it, I think is really important, and just makes you a lot more comfortable as well.
So you as an organization, I mean, you Chris, you've been on social media for a long time, and you as an organization, you see social as being really important. Talk us through how you see that and your vision for that.
Yeah, I think, well, Richard attributes the win that we had last week on Friday, and he said, I couldn't have done that without social media. It was purely through someone contacting him via social on some stuff that we'd shared, and it was being professional but also being personable.
Yeah.
And certainly that's upward of a £2 million win for us. So it's a very sizable cloud project, and it's a fantastic win for the team. So we're starting to get to the point now where we're getting those larger project wins as well. We can't do in-person events still at the moment. I mean, again, I remember on the 13th of March last year, the day after the Oracle Awards, and we were sitting there as a board thinking, well, we'll ride this out for 2 weeks to a month, or maybe it'll be 3 months, but let's all go full circle back to our home bedrooms where I started the company 9 years ago. And I think just having that online social presence, and again, being yourself, being true to what you believe in, and sharing both what the Oracle products are, but also us as a brand and who we are as individuals, that you do over a coffee or over a water cooler conversation that you haven't been able to do, I think has been really key, and we're seeing really good results from it at the moment. So long may it continue.
Well, the fact that you've been able to get a £2 million, so what's that? Was that $2.7 million piece of business from social? That's fantastic.
Yeah, there's been some great revenue there, and I think again it's keeping it up, isn't it? I mean, as I've seen from you and others, I think it's constantly putting stuff out there, and also, and we've had this conversation internally over the last couple of years with people that have said, I don't want to post it. What if no one likes it? Well, if you don't post it, no one's going to like it, are they? So put yourself out there and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we always say to people, what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, nothing. I mean, the great thing about social media is you're in control, because if you can block people, and you are in control of everything that you need to do. So yeah. Chris, it's been great talking to you. The 20 minutes goes really quickly.
That does.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and your journey. I mean, it's absolutely fabulous, the fact that you've been able to grow the business in what is a global pandemic. I mean, fair credit to you and to the team.
Yeah, thank you. And as you say there, and I know I've said it before, but it's all about the team, and it's all about the support. But I think we're in a fortunate industry as well. We've been able to do that, and thanks very much for having me.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I'll see you on social.
Will indeed. All right. Cheers, Tim.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers.
Thanks very much.